Welcome everybody. This is my first Facebook Live interview and I wanted to kind of launch it with Eczema Awareness Month because eczema is one of the most common things that I see in my practice and that children and their parents come to see me for. And there are so many wonderful people that I've met along the way that have been such incredible advocates for eczema awareness. And so I have with me Amber Haygood, and I first met Amber when she dropped off her daughter at Camp Discovery in the summertime, many years ago at this point. And so Camp Discovery is an American Academy of Dermatology sponsored summer camp for children with skin conditions, and since then, I've gotten to know her even better in our advocacy work with the nonprofit organization, A Children's House for the Soul. And that is an organization that supports the social, emotional, and spiritual needs of children and families affected by skin conditions all throughout the year. And so that magic of camp, lives on all throughout the year and provides that support for our families. And the reason why I wanted Amber on is because, like I said, I got introduced to her through her daughter first, and we immediately connected at the heart because we both care so much about empowering those with skin conditions and their families to see and believe the unique beauty that we all have. And I know that it has been and continues to be a long journey for you and Emily with atopic dermatitis, but your story is such an important one, and I wanted to have this platform for you to be able to share that. So thank you so much for being here. And I wanted to start with, oh, hey, Lindsay says hello. I wanted to kind of start with, let's go back to the very beginning when you first noticed that Emily was struggling with her skin. And what I really want to know is what you were feeling as a parent in those moments and what you were struggling with. And so let's start there.
Sure. So Emily has always had eczema. It started out probably when she was about 2 or 3, and it was main places, crease of the arm, back of the leg sort of thing. But when she turned about 8 years old, for whatever reason, it pretty much flared and was all over her entire body. It was very scary because I didn't think it was eczema. I've never seen eczema like that. So to me, it was like something was seriously wrong, and I didn't know what to do. So we started going to our rounds of doctors, which I think I've told you before that I've been to many, many, many doctors. We've been to pediatricians, we've been to allergists, we've been to 8 different dermatologists, and none of them were helpful at all. So, which made it even scarier.
So what is it that, so I guess, from a doctor's perspective, because part of having you on is definitely sharing the kind of patient and parent perspective on what it was that you felt like you needed, but also I want your story to be heard so that healthcare providers and doctors and pediatricians and dermatologists can have a better idea of the other side and what our patients need from and hope from us and what they're looking for in terms of not just the medical side of it, but just supporting someone who's going through something like this. And so what is it in those early stages when you were seeking care from these different physicians, what were you getting, what were you not getting, and what were you hoping for?
So what I think what I really truly wanted to know was why it was happening and like why it wouldn't get better. And the majority of the doctors, I would probably say 90% of the doctors before we found our final dermatologist, there was no explanation. There was just a cream and we'll see you in 6 months. Or we went to an allergist and it was all confusing. Like it was, well, it's allergies, it's not skin. Don't see a dermatologist. We can take care of it. We just got to get you on shots and drops and all this stuff. So no one wanted to work together. So in that end, it was kind of frustrating because I'm like, okay, so like obviously something's wrong with her skin and it's affecting her skin because it's her skin that is the problem, but nobody would talk to each other. I really wanted to just know why it was happening. I feel like I have a better understanding of atopic dermatitis now. So I know that it's not like a cut and dry, answer. Um, but I think that was my main thing. Like, why was it why was it happening? And was there something more than just a cream? I mean, because we pretty much have like stock by now and like triamcinolone and clobetasol cream. So I'm like, there's got to be other options out here. And as Emily got older and it got worse, it became more than her skin. Like it affected her everyday life. Like she wasn't sleeping at night. I had to quit 2 or 3 jobs because she was at home now. She couldn't even go to school. Like it became a social and emotional thing for not just her, but me. So you already felt isolated with a skin condition that it felt like nobody else had and nobody else understood. But then you actually were isolated because you were at home with just yourself and your sick kid who you didn't have any way to like help her. At that time, we didn't have any way to help her.
What were,
Did I answer all your questions?
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, in those moments when you kind of felt like you weren't getting the answers, there wasn't really anybody to turn to, what were sort of the things that you were afraid of, and what kind of got you out of it? What were things that, what are resources that you were able to find? Because I know a lot of it, you had to do all of this to find it yourself. You had to be the one to kind of go out into the unknown and find what's out there and what's available. And a lot of it was on you to do it since you weren't finding the support.
Yeah, I always tell people not to go on Google and Google atopic dermatitis. But I mean, honestly, that's where I started. It was like nobody was helping me. Even all the doctors, didn't matter how much I was paying them, it still was not helpful. The treatments, nothing was helpful. And so I started, on the internet trying to look up, what is eczema, what causes eczema, why do kids get eczema, stuff like that. And I remember late one night, it was like in the middle of the night, and I was on the computer, and I probably have Googled this a million times, but I Googled pediatric dermatologist in Houston. Like I live in Houston, like a prime spot for like medical specialties and care. And like I was never able, nobody was like, oh, go see a pediatric dermatologist, or oh, go to Texas Children's. Like I never got any of that from any of the doctors that we saw. So I Googled it one night, and like I said, I probably Googled it 100 times. And not an ad, but like the first name on Google was the pediatrician that we see now, or pediatric dermatologist that we see now. And so I called that next morning, I made an appointment, and I just wanted hope. Like, and I think that's what a lot of parents want when their kids have such severe atopic dermatitis. I think they just want like hope that it's not going to be like this forever. And if it is like this, there are things that you can do to like help your kid, because you don't want to see I remember thinking like, oh my God, if I can just like pray hard enough that God can give me the skin condition and not my baby, like I would do anything. But there was never, obviously that's not something, it wasn't something that I could pray away. It doesn't mean that you don't have like faith. It doesn't mean your faith isn't strong enough. It doesn't mean that you're not praying enough. It doesn't mean that you don't believe in God enough. But I think I've learned that through the years of this, that God answers prayers in so many different ways. And so some of the resources that I found through searching and Googling in the middle of the night was a children's house for the soul. So that was one of the biggest, I think, helps that we've ever had, because when we started healing emotionally, the skin condition just really wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah. I know I knew it was going to happen at some point. But so one of the points that you really touched on that is really important to me when I'm seeing my patients too is that, some of it is also just, like you said, part of our job as healers is hope. There's not always a cure for something, but that doesn't mean that we can't help somebody in whatever way that means. And that could mean something that, we focus in our medical training, and which is important. We focus on all the medical things that we can do, but sometimes someone just needs, especially, I can't tell you how many times someone has come to me and said, we've been to so many different doctors, and sometimes all they really needed is for someone to sit down and to listen to all the things that they have been through and give them that little bit of hope. And like I said, it's not always medicine. Sometimes it is, providing a listening ear. Sometimes it's time.
Right.
Time. And that's one of the beautiful things about me being able to open up my own practice, because I never have to look at a clock anymore. I can just completely be present with the person in front of me, which is so important to build that relationship and of trust. And
it really is.
And sometimes
That's one of
and what you were talking about with the Children's Hospital Soul, like sometimes it's the way you can help is finding a community of other people who understand what you're going through. Because like you said, it's so isolating to feel like you're alone in this. And when you find others who understand what you're going through, and there's something so empowering about that, where you start kind of feel, when you have that support and community, then you start feeling stronger about advocating not only for yourself, but then you start doing it for others. And we talk about that all the time. Children's Hospital of the Soul has we were both very much involved in that, and that's been such an incredible thing. So what is it, so now that you do feel a little bit more supported and you have this community, so what do you feel like really turned it around, for not only yourself but for Emily?
In the community in Children's House for the Soul, or just like for her skin?
So from going from feeling like
hopeless,
eczema's not under control, I don't feel good about what I'm going through, the struggles and the fears that I have, all of these things. What was that turning point where you felt like, you know what, I got this. It's not going to be, roses all the time, and I'll still have struggles through it. But what is it that turned it around, that, okay, yes, I accept these and it's going to, but I'm strong enough to figure out what it is that I need to do?
So I guess a few things. So, finding a doctor that listens, and I have the highest respect for what you do and what all those other doctors that didn't help us, we went to them for a reason. And not everybody, that's the thing, like just because one doctor couldn't help us, that doesn't mean that another dermatologist can't help you, right? Like each of you are so different. And so I have the highest respect, but I think when you find a doctor that can truly invest in your child and then it really listen to what you're saying, like that helps you kind of like start on the path of like, okay, maybe this isn't so hopeless. But we went to our first Love the Skin You're In conference where Rick was there taking photos. Rick is from Positive. I don't ever say his last name right.
We did.
Okay. So Rick is from a nonprofit called Positive Exposures, and he was taking the kids' pictures. And I just saw Emily, and at that point, her eczema was not under control. It was completely out of control, and we were kind of in the process of finding things to help it. But she just lit up, like the way that he talked to her, and he made her feel. And I just watched her eyes just light up, in front of the camera. I just thought, okay, maybe this is about more than what she looks like. Maybe this is about more than what's visible, like on her skin. And I would say that was probably like the biggest turning point. And he then turned the camera to me, and the way he made me feel, like, and I don't have a skin condition, but the way he made me feel, I was like, wow, I feel really beautiful, like around him. And if that's like how each of these kids feel, when he talks to them and the way he was treating them and how he was taking their photos and stuff, I think that was the turning point for Emily and for us.
So Amber, I was there. I was there when that moment happened for Emily, and I was there when it happened for you, and it was such a beautiful thing to watch. And what you don't know also is that there are so many of those moments that now I'm going to get emotional, but there's so many of those moments that I have watched with Emily at camp every single day of that week, from the very first time that she showed up, and she was, you know, very shy and quiet, which most people are when they come to
Yeah,
camp, because they, like I said, so many of them have never met other kids who are going through something similar to them. They don't know how they're so used to being stared at or bullied, at school and other places, and then they're finally in a place where everybody kind of has something going on in their skin. It's you just get to be a kid there. You just get to do
right.
all the normal things, and be friends with people and make new friends and learn new things and have new challenges. And so to watch these kids from that very first day, shy, unsure of themselves, and then they leave camp completely, um, a little bit more independent, a lot more confident in who they are, and then to watch that year after year, and start to become, and we've seen it with Emily, and we'll talk a little bit about that too, is that now that she's done it and she's more sure of herself and she knows who she is, and that she's not defined by just simply what's on her skin, now she starts to advocate for others to
Yeah.
also get to that point and have that perspective. And one of the cool things that we got to do last year was, so you can talk about it a little bit more, but with the Children's House for the Soul, and also with Positive Exposure. So Positive Exposure, like Amber was talking about, is a nonprofit run by, started by Rick Guidato, who's a fashion photographer who, many years ago, I think was it a little bit over 20 years ago, kind of became disillusioned with just how beauty was defined and being told what beauty was, and he sought out to find beauty in all of our diversity. And so for the last couple decades, he's been going around the world taking photographs of all different ethnicities, all different, people with different genetic skin diseases, disabilities, all kinds of things, because he wants to show the humanity that we have in all of us. And so he opened up last year. He opened up his own like freestanding gallery in New York City, and we, your daughter and a couple of other Children's House for the Soul family members, all got to go to the opening, and we got to close out the opening weekend with a fashion show with some of the models, who happened to be one of whom it was your daughter. So tell me a little bit about that experience and what that felt like for you. And like, it was such a crowning moment for all of us to watch. So I want you to describe what you felt as a parent.
Yeah, it started kind of before that weekend when we released, like, we brought the girls over to the designer's house, Kimberly, and we showcased, that was the first time they've seen their gowns. And so the girls they had a little photo shoot there at Kimberly's house, and they tried them on the first time.
Back up a little, tell us about the gowns.
Oh, okay. So the gowns are actually, each of the girls designed exactly what they want. They sat with Kimberly and told her everything from the top to the straps to the bottom, how long it was, how they wanted it to look. And then each of the girls has a different skin condition. So Emily has atopic dermatitis. One of the other girls has alopecia, which is hair loss, and then the other girl has scleroderma. And so on the dresses, the print on the dresses are what their skin condition looks like under the microscope. So what I think was so special about that was all three of those girls, what they have in common is they have zero control over their skin condition. Absolutely no control. And it's been like that pretty much all of their lives. They never know when it's going to be set off. They never know what the after effects are after it's set off. And I think, or flared, whatever terminology you want to use. And there's a lot that these skin conditions kind of like leave in its wake. And to have control over how you got to present that skin condition to other people and in a way that made them feel beautiful was so special. And so when people ask me about it, I'm like, Emily does not have control over her skin condition, but she was able to take something that had caused her so much pain for the majority of her life and create something beautiful out of it. And for other people to see that beauty is really special. Yeah. So it was really awesome to see them have so much confidence and just like I mean, just so much sass walking down the runway. And then to hear them, they actually got interviewed by CBS this morning, and you can find that actually on YouTube.
I posted it last week, and I'll put another link to it.
Oh, okay.
I also posted videos of them walking down the runway, and Emma, I don't even, did she practice her walk? Because she, I mean, she like had her shoulders back and carried herself with such confidence and poise. And there's a point where she was walking and she just does this.
Yeah, she flipped her hair up. She flipped her hair. You know, she that song that she chose, it's a BTS song. It's not my favorite music, right? But I'm like, couldn't we pick another song that week before? You know, Lindsay or Kimberly was like, we need your song choice, Amber. We need your song choice. And I'm telling Emily, can we please pick another song? She's like, it's supposed to be my song and what I feel confident in or confident listening to. And I'm like, okay, fine. And that song, I was like, okay, I kind of love these guys, you know, I guess they're all right. But it just made her feel like she was on top of the world. And to me, she is always on top of the world, but for other people to see it.
She was she 13 at the time?
Yeah, she's 13.
13 last year. Okay. Yeah. So
yes, 13.
The 13-year-old got to walk in New York City in a fashion show. I mean, and it was covered on CBS News, on national news. So she got, I mean, like for someone who, I mean, her story was told, and that has to be so, you know, what do all of us ever want? We want to be accepted, we want to be understood, and we want people to see us for who we really are. And like, it was such a triumphant crowning moment for her. And I was, you know, all of us obviously were all in tears, and we were just so proud of
I know we were.
Not just the girls though, because I mean, you have to understand that those girls are the way they are because all of the people that have supported them, including,
it's what it meant like for other people, I think. And to hear them like talk about their condition and how like it made them feel and stuff to Jerika Duncan, I think that was like the most defining thing that weekend. Like, you can choose, and I do a little thing on my personal page about eczema all month, but you can talk about your pain and I cry because remembering it is hurtful, but you can talk about all those things, but it's really not about your pain and your hurt. What it's about is how you take that pain and your hurt and what you make of it. And what those girls made of it that weekend. And I had people message me like, oh, my kid has this and this, and that's so amazing to be able to show them like where you can be, you know, and you can still have, you know, a skin condition. They still struggle. I'm sure all those girls still struggle. I know Emily still struggles, but that struggle doesn't define her. And I think that's where I want my daughter to be, is that struggle not defining her.
Yeah. And I got to actually watch live with you. But when they finally,
I think you recorded it, didn't you?
Recorded it. No, because it was just us. We were the three of us. You, Emily, and myself.
Oh, that's right. The recording of CBS. That's right. When they played it.
Kind of live, and you know, that was right before Emily was going to school, and I don't know if she told you, but I dropped her a little note to take with her to school.
It's on our refrigerator.
I mean, I was just so proud of her. You know, it was such a triumph for me. And it's one of those things that, so as a pediatric dermatologist, one of the things like that my goal is to get patients and their families to the point where they don't need me anymore.
Right.
You know, where not just from the medical perspective, but where you feel like you do have some better control of, and I don't mean necessarily the skin condition, but of you know, that you have the support, you have the confidence that yes, it's a part of me, it will always be a part of me, it's not going to go away, but all of that, all of the pain, all of the suffering, whatever that was, has now actually made me even stronger. And I say this a lot, but there's a lot of times where I tell some of my patients, and they think it's kind of crazy when I first say it, that having had something that's visible, especially or even any chronic illness, for what you've had to go through, it's kind of like a superpower. And they always look at me weird when I say that, and it's just what I mean by that is that when you've gone through something like that and you've experienced that pain, you once you've overcome that or learned how to handle those struggles, and have the support to do it, you automatically become even more compassionate, even more kind towards others who are going through those same things.
True,
And
yeah.
you want to lend that helping them hand because you want them to be in that same place that you've been. And so just to kind of round it out, so what are ways that you would encourage other parents to advocate for their children, whether whether they have eczema, whether they have other skin conditions, whether they have chronic illnesses, or they're struggling with depression, anxiety, anything in those ways? Like how as a parent do you feel like um, you could best support your child and advocate for them?
So I believe that in general, most people's intentions are good. And I know that you know this, that we've experienced some very unfortunate instances with the general public, with some doctors, unfortunately, but I do believe that most people's intentions are good. And I think what started to make a difference is when I allowed people to ask questions, but I made a boundary that it's okay to ask questions, but it's not okay to be hurtful in the way that you ask it. So, like, our words are very powerful, right? So, even the words that we speak to our kids. So, Emily told me one time, I had said, you know, like her face, I think she was flaring up. And I said, not with the intention of like hurting her, but I said, what is wrong with your face? Like, but I didn't mean that in like, I would never mean that in a hurtful way. But the way our kids like take what we say to them, even, she took it as there was literally something wrong with her. And I think it's important to like teach our kids, as a parent, to teach our kids that there's nothing wrong with them. They are truly perfect the way they are. They have different skin, or they have different chronic illness or different ability that not everybody has. But to instill like that, I can't even think of the word now, but to instill that confidence in them, because then when they are confronted by somebody outside of their bubble, their home, their family, they're able to like express that to others, right? Like that confidence radiates. Like Emily said it. She was like, if you walk out of the house, in her little interview in New York, she said, if you walk out of the house and you don't feel good about yourself and you don't love yourself and you don't think you're hot and amazing, other people are going to see that. You know, like you have to love yourself just the way you are. It doesn't matter if your skin's flared, doesn't matter, you know, if you're losing your hair, you got to love yourself, because that's what other people are going to see. And if you want other people to love you, you have to love yourself first. And I think loving our kids no matter what, and just instilling in them that there's nothing wrong with them, really helps build their confidence. And then they're able to advocate, you know, advocate for themselves. And I think that's a big thing, is teaching them to advocate for themselves. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yeah, you totally did. I don't want to, you know, take too much of your time. But I mean, I thought that was just I want to acknowledge you for, you know, I know that it has been and continues to be a long journey for you and Emily with atopic dermatitis. But like I said, your story is one of love and growth and hope. And I think and one that I think will continue to inspire so many other families, particularly ones who are on the start of their journey and may not yet have your perspective. And I just want to let you know how much I appreciate, especially this month. So, you know, and I think you have them that they're public, but every day this month, and even last year and probably years before,
Yeah.
all your very kind of personal perspectives of all the things that you've learned with Emily, all these years of things that have, you know, affected so much of your life and her life. And it's not just facts, it's real experiences. And it's so valuable to anybody who's going, not just through with eczema, but any skin condition. And so I thank you so much for just being such a voice for all those who are who have experienced any kind of visible skin difference, and all of the social, emotional, and spiritual kind of struggles that come along with that, and for sharing your very raw story of the things that, you know, worked and didn't work, and what you felt and your emotions, and that is very powerful and empowering to others as well. So thank you so much for doing it. Thanks so much for you know, being on this with me in my first Facebook Live interview. But
Well, I try and do it only because it's not talked about. Nobody talks about it. And I think that that's a like, nobody talks about depression. Nobody talks about mental illness. So then when you're sitting like smack dab in the middle of it, like you literally feel like you're drowning.
yeah, yeah, and it's one of those things that I would like to think, with all this that's been going on in the last, you know, 6 months or so, that we've all had a little bit more understanding of what it feels like to feel like isolated, and I hope that allows us to, you know, for the people who are really starting to be a little bit more compassionate and understanding of that. I hope that, you know, there's a lot of things that weren't so great about all of this, but I hope that at least from that experience, that that's what comes out of it, that we're all a little bit more compassionate and kind towards others. Because I know that, you know, for me, I mean, I am I'm an extrovert. I'm a terrible hermit. And there are times that I've really struggled, but you know, anytime that I have those experiences, it allows me to understand better what other people are going through too, and I try to take that and you know, learn from it. And I hope that all of us have learned to be a little bit more compassionate and kind towards others during all of this. But again, with Eczema Awareness Month, thank you so much for continuing
You're welcome.
to it. I know that you have some like surprise wonderful projects coming up, so I would love to have you back on when that becomes more known. But Amber Haygood here, along with her beautiful daughter Emily, is changing the world and doing amazing things. So stay tuned for that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful weekend, and thank you all of you who were on to listen to Amber's story. And I will post some of the links of the organizations that we talked about below, and we'll post this video so that you can take a look at it afterwards as well. So thanks everybody for being here.
Bye, Dr. Julipali.